Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We trust you all, we're all very grateful that you found your way back after your night out on the town of Baltimore last evening. We are honored this morning to have with us as our keynote speaker a gentleman who's not a stranger to most of us in the room. Bart Johnson is the acting Undersecretary for Intelligence and Analysis at DHS, but a lot of us know him from his sordid past, his 30 years in law enforcement, retiring as a colonel at the New York State Police before he accepted a position at the DNI as the Director of Homeland Security and Law Enforcement for the Office of the DNI. Bart's been a very, very, very good friend to all of us in this community. He was at one time the co-chair of Global. He's served on the CICC and has been a good friend to NIEM and a champion in the area of information sharing, which NIEM is at the heart of. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Bart Johnson.
Morning, everybody. It's really great to be here. I'm very humbled to stand before all of you. I just, have one clarifying, comment that Justin just made. Did you say assorted past or sordid past? Okay, all right. You must have been talking to some of my former colleagues. But more importantly, it's great to be here on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security and certainly Secretary Janet Napolitano. And I had an opportunity to review the agenda and also some of the attendees. And there's a lot of familiar names, so it's great to see that core group of people, are still hard at it, working towards information sharing, and continuing to break down a lot of the obstacles. I also really want to thank Donna Roy, for the opportunity to be here today, and certainly Justin Murphy, who I've gotten to know over the past couple of years, and they've been really true partners. As I think you'll quickly learn, I'm not a technologist. I don't know a lot about plugging things in. I've always been on the receiving end of a lot of this information, and throughout my career, it has always been very, very helpful to me. And I've never really given much thought, as it relates to, how it happens. I just relied on it and really took it for granted. So really what I want to do is just share, with you a little bit about my background and my experiences and, where I started and how information sharing, really entered my life in government. And then my experiences with INA, the way ahead, and really how important, what you do is to, the government and our national security on a daily basis. Justin mentioned, that I came to this position back on May 18th of this year, and I was supposed to have been the Principal Deputy Undersecretary, and still waiting, very, very patiently for an Undersecretary to come on board. So suffice to say, particularly over the past couple of weeks, it's been very, very busy. But I really draw a lot of strength from, my colleagues in the federal government, and, I don't want to say more importantly, but equally important from my state and local tribal contacts on a regular basis. Because if it wasn't for those interactions, I would be questioning myself about, why am I doing the things that I'm doing. So it's really important to have and continue those relationships. I came, to this position after spending a year and a half with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And if I didn't spend that period of time there, that year and a half, I got to tell you, I don't think I would have a lot of the opportunities and access to information and support in this current role than I would have. And additionally, I don't think I'd have really the understanding of what the intelligence community does. A lot of people take for granted what those men and women do overseas in very dangerous situations, and you read about it, in the paper on a regular basis about some of the, recent attacks, on Batul Masood and other individuals that, certainly want to cause harm to our country. And that information that, is developed on a daily basis, needs to get in the hands of the state, local, and tribal law enforcement and homeland security people on a real-time basis. And I'm here to tell you, and very happy to tell you, that that is occurring, on a regular basis. And granted, yes, it needs to be improved, but, there's people out there that are working really, really hard to make, it happen. Justin did mention that I've been in government for about 34 years now. I started back in 1975 as a young dispatcher in the city of Peekskill, and I was responsible for working the low-band radio and, getting license checks and data checks on individuals. And that's one of the examples of, something that I took for granted. There was a big, gray, clunky machine that sat behind me, and it was a teletype. And it worked very, very slowly, very, very methodically. And when I would answer the radio, can I have a data on, ABC 123, and I'd go to that gray, clunky machine and type in the plate number, formatted, and up would pop, the license registration on that individual, whether or not that individual was wanted, was a danger to that officer in the field who made that stop. So that information, was based on standards, and it's something that I took for granted. And the standards were that, a name appeared here, last name, first name, date of birth, race, and then registration, Buick, LeSabre, the year, and the VIN number. It was very, very accountable, very, very structured, and it really provided, that frontline individual the important information that they needed on a regular basis. So I really think that's, what NIEM is all about, the National Information Exchange Model. So I have been paying attention, and it's based on Global Justice XML. But along with that, goes a lot of other things, because if you don't have the standards and you don't have the process and you don't have the tools and you don't have the information to share, that piece, of the puzzle or the pie or whatever, is not self-sustaining. So you need to, work really towards the rest of it. And that's something, that I'm dedicated to do with all of you on a regular basis, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. I had a great privilege and really an honor to be with Bob Boehmer, as the vice chair for the Global Advisory Committee, and I see Colonel Kumaletti and Carl Wickland, without a drink in your hand, Carl, which is unusual. Sorry, Carl. But, and I was also the chair of the Criminal Intelligence Coordinating Council, and that's really where I got involved with privacy and security and standards, and it really started to make sense to me, at that point in time, how important the trusted exchanges and handshakes of data, that what a person is going to be doing within that information on a regular basis. And that goes to, what I do right now within the Office of Intelligence and Analysis, to work with the NIEM standards to make sure that that information is, passing in a very trusted and timely way. Because without that sharing of information, INA is not going to be contributing to our national security by providing that information from the intelligence community down to you, and equally importantly and horizontally, the number of component agencies resident with the department to share and compile that information, integrate it, and hopefully enhance it with the intelligence community information, and then pass it to the fusion centers that are situated throughout this great country. I'm also very proud to say that, New York State, when I was with a colonel with the troopers, that we were responsible for standing up, one of the first intelligence centers in the country, the New York State Intelligence Center. When I was being interviewed by the Secretary, Napolitano, I made the big mistake of saying it was the first center in the country to stand up 24/7, and she says, "No, Bart, I think you're wrong. It was the Arizona Counterterrorism Advisory Center out in Arizona." I said, "Yes, ma'am, you're absolutely correct." But suffice to say, there's now 72 of them. 72 of them, all in different levels of maturity. But there's one thing in common. There's really centers of where people are sitting shoulder by shoulder, database to database, sharing information real time to contribute to national security. And that's what the Office of Intelligence and Analysis is responsible for doing. A recent success that we had, and I started working on this when I was with the Office of Director of National Intelligence, is access to information resident on SIPRNet. And, you know, DOD, that is their backbone for information sharing, war plans and communications, but also resident on that system is a lot of great information about, you know, bad guys overseas, bad guys who maybe used to live in Albany, New York, which they did, unfortunately. Also VBIEDs and the information on how to construct a bomb, you know, what components are going into them. Maybe a little bit about TATP, which was recently in the paper over the past couple of weeks, and really how, you know, very easily on a website you get access to the information, go to different locations, collect the chemicals required to build a bomb, and the next thing you have is something that happened over in London during the two bombings in July 7th and the second attempt back on July 21st. So it's very important to get that information, because if you don't, you're not fully leveraging the 800,000 law enforcement professionals out there who are at the tip of the spear trying to identify suspicious activity, reporting that information, and that goes to the National Suspicious Activity Reporting Initiative that we're working very closely with the FBI and Bureau of Justice Assistance, and also Justin and Department of Justice. And that's very important, because it's, you know, it's doing what I did back in '77 when I was a young city of Peekskill cop, you know, making observations about individual reaching into his pocket, you know, sharing something, you know, with other individuals, and knowing something was there. And then when I approached that individual, I didn't have enough to arrest that person, but I did know it's reasonably suspicious, 28 CFR Part 23, make an inquiry, and then I would write it in a notebook, and it stayed in my notebook. But what SAR is doing through exchange of NIEM, you know, standards and information is enabling the flow of that information. And so now what you have is training, privacy, civil liberties, civil rights, a person to report it to, supervisory oversight. It goes into shared space, and from that, eGuardian and the Bureau is pulling information that could be relevant to terrorist activity occurring with the United States. And that model that's being built is also going to have the added capability of doing that for narcotics, money laundering, border smuggling, and everything that's, you know, very important to our country. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read or review or watch the testimony that was provided to Senator Lieberman and Collins yesterday on the Homeland Security Committee regarding domestic terrorism, and what dominated the conversation were the recent arrests of Azazi, which, you know, it should, and also Fenton and Smotty in Illinois and Texas, respectively. And the information sharing is important. It needs to continue. And those three incidents alone are truly illustrative that there's still people within this country trying to do us harm, and we need to be involved as an enterprise right across the board. You know, not me as a Fed, you know, not, you know, the IC alone or defense alone, but that integrated structure and enterprise once again, that we really need to get that information back and forth in a real-time way. What the Secretary also stated and quite frankly announced was, you know, she stated that we're still not there yet. A lot of improvements need to be made regarding the information sharing, the trust and everything that goes along with that. And secondly, the creation of a program management office, which I'm going to be personally responsible for, and it's pretty significant because when you look at the implementing the 9/11 Terrorist Act of 2007, it set forth for the department some very strong statutes and requirements on the Department of Homeland Security to do a certain number of things regarding the support of fusion centers, information sharing, interacting with the intelligence community, the training, the building analytical expertise in the field, and the sharing of information, and NIEM certainly contributes to that. So that's something that we're going to be stepping out with in full force. It brings to bear the entire department, not just my Office of Intelligence Analysis, But CBP and ICE and Citizen Immigration Service, TSA, all those hundreds of thousands of people literally who have access to information. So that hopefully will populate and assist you in doing what you need to do on a regular basis. So suffice to say, what you all are doing every day and the conversations that you're having here today are going to contribute to our national security.